At Christmas dinner, my daughter-in-law raised her glass and said loudly, "From today on, I'll be managing all of the family's affairs. Mother-in-law, your card has been canceled. My husband decided it was for the best." Everyone celebrated. I just smiled and said, "Son, you really have no idea, do you?" He froze as if his heart had stopped. My daughter-in-law screamed, "Know what?" Let me tell you how I got to that moment. How a night that should have been full of joy became the instant my own son plunged a knife into my chest without even realizing what he was doing. If these life stories move you, subscribe to the channel to keep hearing confessions like this one. Give it a like and stay with me until the end. Because what's coming, nobody saw coming. My name is Amelia. I'm 68 years old, and that Christmas night, dressed in my wine-colored wool shawl that I had knitted myself, I was sitting at the head of the table in my own home, watching my family celebrate my humiliation. The table was set with the embroidered tablecloth I had sewn 30 years ago. The scented candles gave off a cinnamon smell. The golden brown turkey rested in the center, surrounded by all the trimmings, from stuffing to green bean casserole. Everything looked perfect. Everything except what was about to happen. Valerie, my daughter-in-law, stood up. She wore a tight peach-colored dress that highlighted her 5-month baby bump. Her brown hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She smiled with that confidence only people who think they've already won possess. She raised her glass of sparkling cider and gently tapped the crystal with a small spoon. The tinkling sound caught everyone's attention. My son Ryan, sitting beside her, looked at her with adoration. My sisters-in-law, my nephews' wives, stopped talking. The children running around the living room paused. Even the Christmas music seemed to lower its volume. "Family," Valerie began, her voice firm and clear. "Today is a special day, not just because it's Christmas, but because I have an important announcement to make." I felt a knot in my stomach. Something in her tone warned me this wasn't going to be about the baby. "As you know, Ryan and I are expecting our first child. This makes us think about the future, about responsibilities." She paused dramatically, letting her words hang in the air. "That's why we've made a very important family decision." Ryan nodded beside her, serious with that expression he put on when he believed he was doing the right thing. Valerie continued, "From today on, I will be managing all the finances of this family. It's time for someone young, with a modern financial education, to take control of things." The silence was so thick you could hear the candles crackle. "Mother-in-law," she said, turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Your credit card was canceled this morning. Ryan and I decided it's for the best. At your age, you don't need to worry about expenses or responsibilities. We'll take care of everything. If you need anything, just ask for it in advance. Of course." The words fell like stones into a calm lake. But the lake wasn't me. The lake was my family. My sisters-in-law exchanged looks of approval. One of them, Sarah, even clapped softly. "What a great idea, Valerie. My mother-in-law should do the same. These older ladies are a disaster with money." The nephews laughed. Someone clinked their glass with Valerie's. Ryan smiled proudly, as if he had just solved a problem no one else had seen. And I just watched them. I watched as my 32-year-old son, the boy I raised alone after being widowed, the man I shaped with tears and sacrifice, looked at me as if I were a burden he had finally learned to manage. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something deeper. It was the confirmation of a suspicion I'd had for 3 years, since the day Valerie entered our lives. I took a sip of my spiced apple cider. The bittersweet taste reminded me of all the Christmases past, when Ryan and I were just the two of us, sharing a simple casserole at our small table, laughing because I had burned the turkey. Now we were here, in this house he thought was mine, surrounded by people celebrating my defeat. I set the glass down on the table. The sound echoed louder than I expected. All eyes turned to me. Valerie was still standing, expectant, waiting for my reaction. She wanted to see me cry, wanted me to beg, wanted me to break. But instead I smiled. It was a calm, almost sweet smile. The smile of someone who knows something the others don't. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of my 68 years in my knees. I looked my son directly in the eyes, those honey-colored eyes he inherited from his father, eyes that once looked at me with pure love before the poison of ambition clouded them. "Son," I said softly, my voice calm, "you really have no idea, do you?" Ryan blinked, his smile frozen. Something in my tone made him hesitate. "Know what, Mom?" he asked, his voice uncertain. Valerie stepped forward nervously. "Know what?" she repeated, but now her voice had an edge of panic. I didn't answer right away, just looked at both of them. And in that silence, in that pause heavy with meaning, I saw doubt begin to creep across their faces like cold water, because they didn't know anything. They didn't know who I really was. They didn't know what I had built in 40 years of silence. They didn't know that the woman they had just publicly humiliated was the only one holding the keys to the kingdom they thought they were conquering. The table fell completely silent. The only sounds were the ticking of the wall clock and the crackling of the logs in the fireplace. And there I was, Amelia, the widow, the seamstress, the devoted mother, the woman they had just underestimated for the last time. But to understand why that question left them frozen, I need to take you back in time. I need to tell you who I am, where I come from, and how I built an empire in the shadows, while everyone believed I was just a harmless old lady, because the worst was yet to come. 40 years ago, I wasn't Amelia, the humiliated mother-in-law at a Christmas dinner. I was Amelia, the 28-year-old widow who had just buried her husband, 7 months pregnant and with a mountain of debt that threatened to bury her alive. I remember the day of the funeral as if it were yesterday. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds that never quite released the rain. The casket rested under the earth at St. Michael's Cemetery. I stood there in a black dress borrowed from a neighbor, feeling my son kick inside my womb as if protesting his father's absence. I didn't cry that day, not because I didn't want to, but because my tears had run out 3 days earlier when the doctor told me, "I'm sorry, ma'am. We did everything we could." David had died in a car accident, a truck that ran a red light, and in an instant, everything we had built together vanished. What didn't vanish were the debts. 2 weeks after the burial, there was a knock at my door. It was Mr. Thompson, the owner of the hardware store where David had taken out a line of credit to repair our roof. He handed me a wrinkled piece of paper with numbers handwritten on it. "Mrs. Miller, I'm sorry to bother you in your time of grief, but it's $50,000. Your husband signed the deed to the house as collateral." I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. $50,000. In 1985, that was a fortune. And I was a seamstress who made $100 a week mending hems and darning pants. I closed the door, sat on the living room floor. My hand caressed my swollen belly, and for the first time since David died, I spoke aloud. "Forgive me, my child. Your mother doesn't know how we're going to get out of this, but I swear to God we're going to make it." I had no plan, no money, barely any strength, but I had a Singer sewing machine my grandmother had left me, and I had hands that knew how to turn fabric into dreams. The next day, I walked 6 blocks to the home of Eleanor Vance, a high society woman who had once asked me to alter an imported dress for her. I knocked on her wrought iron door with my heart in my throat. When she opened it, she saw me there, pregnant, with dark circles under my eyes, holding a worn-out portfolio filled with my hand-drawn designs. "Mrs. Vance," I said, my voice trembling but firm, "I need work, anything, but I promise you if you give me a chance, you will never find anyone who sews better than I do." She looked me up and down. Then, to my surprise, she smiled. "Come in, dear. Let's have some coffee." That afternoon changed my life. Eleanor didn't just give me work. She gave me an education. She taught me that sewing wasn't just a craft, it was a business. She explained profit margins, how to charge by the design, and not just by the hour, the importance of having clients who paid well instead of many who paid little. "Amelia," she told me one day as we drank tea in her garden full of bougainvillea, "you have a gift, but a gift without a strategy is like owning gold and not knowing its value. I'm going to invest in you. I'll lend you money to buy more, quality fabrics, to rent a small workshop, and you'll pay me back when you start earning. No rush, but there's one condition. Never settle for being just a seamstress. Become a businesswoman." 2 months later, Ryan was born, a beautiful 7-pound baby with his father's eyes and my upturned nose. I held him in my arms in that small public hospital room and whispered, "You're going to have everything I never had, I promise you." And I kept my promise. I worked like never before. From 5 in the morning to 11 at night, Ryan slept in a cradle next to my sewing machine. The sound of the mechanical pedal became his lullaby. While I sewed wedding dresses, sweet 16 gowns, and formal suits, he grew up surrounded by colorful threads and silk scraps. With the money Eleanor lent me, I opened my first workshop, Amelia's Fine Apparel, in a 200-square-foot space in a revitalized part of the city. I hired 2 girls from the neighborhood who knew how to sew. I taught them everything Eleanor had taught me. The first 6 months were hard. There were nights I ate only beans and toast to afford more fabric, but slowly the business grew. The society ladies started recommending me. "You have to go to Amelia, that girl sews like an angel." And with every dress I delivered, my reputation grew. 3 years after David's death, I had paid off all his debts, every dollar, down to the last cent. Eleanor came to visit me at the workshop the day I made my last payment. She hugged me tightly and said, "I'm proud of you, dear. Now comes the hard part. Growing." And I grew. I opened a second workshop, then a third. I started selling not just to private clients, but to elegant boutiques. I registered my brand. Eleanor introduced me to an accountant, to a lawyer. She taught me how to invest. The money you earn isn't for spending, Amelia. It's for making it grow. Buy properties, rent them out, create passive income. I didn't fully understand what passive income meant, but I learned. Oh, how I learned. I bought my first commercial property when Ryan was 8, a small shop on a well-located corner. I rented it to a woman who ran a small grocery store. Every month, she paid me $2,000, money that came in without me having to sew a single button. Ryan went to a public school. He wore mended uniforms. We ate simply. We lived in the same humble house David had left us, but secretly, I was building an empire. 10 years after being widowed, I owned 3 rented commercial properties. At 15 years, there were 5. I bought properties in up-and-coming areas before prices skyrocketed. I invested in treasury bonds. I saved every dollar as if it were my last. And I never, ever told Ryan anything. I wanted my son to grow up hungry, with a drive to work hard, to value money because he had seen it be scarce. So he wouldn't become one of those spoiled rich kids who squander fortunes because they never had to earn them. So I kept up the facade. The widowed seamstress, the struggling mother, the simple woman who was just getting by. When Ryan turned 18 and started studying industrial engineering at the State Tech University, I told him he'd gotten a full scholarship. In reality, I was paying every dollar of his tuition, $5,000 a semester. When he graduated and got his first job as a junior engineer, earning $3,000 a month, he was so proud. He hugged me and said, "Mom, now I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to work so hard anymore." I laughed. I caressed his face. Oh, my boy, if only you knew. But I said nothing. By then, I already had 8 commercial properties, all rented, generating $10,000 a month in passive income. I had 3 luxury condos downtown that I'd bought at a bargain price during the economic crisis, and I had over $250,000 in bank investments. My total net worth exceeded $1 million, and Ryan believed his mother barely survived by sewing dresses. I did it for love, for protection, because I wanted him to become a man on his own merits. But I never imagined that this silence, this white lie, would become the weapon they would one day use to sink me. Because 3 years later, Ryan met Valerie at a corporate party, and everything began to change. She came into my life like a fog, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but covering everything until you could no longer see the path ahead. And I, who had survived widowhood, debt, and 40 years of struggle, didn't see what was coming until it was too late. Ryan was 30 when he met Valerie. I was 65, and at that point, my son still didn't know the truth about me. To him, I was the self-sacrificing mother who lived in a modest little house in a quiet suburb, who still sewed dresses to stay active, who rejected his offers of financial help with stubborn pride. "No, sweetie, I'm fine. You save your money for your future." What Ryan didn't know was that this modest little house was just one of my 9 properties. I'd bought it 20 years ago for $60,000. Now it was worth over $300,000. But I kept it simple on purpose. Cream-colored walls, old but comfortable furniture, a living room with that floral sofa he remembered from his childhood. It was all a stage, a set carefully designed so my son would believe his mother was barely surviving with dignity. Meanwhile, I kept building. At 65, I had expanded my little empire. I had 8 rented commercial properties in prime areas, 2 pharmacies, 3 medical offices, a cafe, a stationery shop, and a beauty salon. Every month, without lifting a finger, $10,000 clear was deposited into my bank accounts. I also owned 3 luxury condos downtown that Eleanor and I had bought as partners when the market crashed in 2008. We rented them to foreign executives for $3,000 a month each. My accountant, Mr. Morris, a serious 60-year-old man with thick-rimmed glasses, visited me every 3 months to review the finances. He always knocked on my door at 9 in the morning when he knew Ryan was already at work. "Mrs. Miller," he'd say as we reviewed the statements at my dining table, "your investments continue to grow. You're now at $260,000 in bonds and mutual funds. Do you want to diversify further?" I would nod, taking notes in my hardcover notebook. The seamstress who never finished high school now understood annual returns, compound interest rates, and long-term investment strategies. Eleanor had taught me well before she passed away 5 years ago. Her last wish was to leave me her share of the properties we had bought together. "You paid back every dollar I lent you, Amelia, and you gave me something more valuable. You proved to me that betting on women is never a bad investment." But none of this existed for Ryan. To him, I was still the widow who sometimes asked him to help change a light bulb or fix a dripping faucet. I lied to him. Yes, but I did it out of love. I wanted my son to learn the value of effort, to know what it felt like to earn things, so he wouldn't become one of those men who waste inherited fortunes because they never broke a sweat to get them. And it worked. Ryan became a responsible, hardworking, honest engineer. He rented a small apartment, drove a used car, saved money every month. I was proud of him. Until Valerie arrived. He met her at an industrial engineering conference. She worked as a marketing manager for a consulting firm, 32 years old, university degree, designer clothes, French perfume. She spoke with the confidence of someone born with open doors. Ryan came to visit me one sunny Saturday with a smile I hadn't seen since he was a boy. "Mom, I met someone special." My heart filled with joy. My son, always so shy, had finally found someone. "What's her name, sweetie?" "Valerie. She's incredible. Mom, smart, successful, beautiful. I want you to meet her." 2 weeks later, she knocked on my door. She arrived in a white BMW. She wore large sunglasses, a leather handbag I recognized as designer. I had sewn enough knockoffs to know the difference, and heels that clicked authoritatively against the floor. I opened the door with my apron still on, my hands smudged with flour because I was making cookies. "Ma'am, a pleasure. I'm Valerie." She extended her hand. Her handshake was brief, almost dismissive. Her eyes scanned my house in 2 seconds. The old sofa, the ancient television, the faded curtains. I saw her expression change, a microsecond of disappointment, immediately covered with a professional smile. That day, we ate the pot roast I had prepared. Ryan talked excitedly about their plans together. Valerie nodded, but her eyes kept wandering around my house, evaluating, cataloging, judging. When they left, I sat on my floral sofa. Something in my stomach didn't feel right, but I told myself, "Give it time, Amelia, you barely know her." The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Ryan and Valerie officially became a couple. He started changing, small things at first. He stopped visiting me on Sundays, our sacred tradition since he was a child, because Valerie organized brunches with her friends. He started wearing more expensive clothes, things I knew he couldn't afford on his salary. When I asked him, he said, "Valerie says I need to invest in my professional image, Mom." One day, he came to see me with a serious face. "Mom, Valerie and I are thinking about getting married." My heart skipped a beat. "So soon, sweetie? You've only been together for 8 months." "She's the one, Mom. I know it." And then, he scratched the back of his neck nervously. "There's something I want to ask you." I felt a chill. "Tell me." "Valerie thinks that." "Well, that when we get married, it would be a good idea for you to sell this house and come live with us. She says it's too big for you alone, that you're getting older, that you need someone to take care of you. There it was, the first move on the chessboard. I smiled calmly. Oh, sweetie, I'm perfectly fine here. This house holds my memories, my sewing workshop. I can't imagine living anywhere else. Ryan frowned. But Mom, Valerie's right. What if you fall and no one's around? If you get sick, we could take better care of you. Take care of you. That phrase, as if I were an invalid old woman who needed supervision. Son, I'm 65, not 90. I'm still working, walking, living my life. When the time comes that I need help, I'll let you know. But that time isn't today. I saw the frustration in his eyes, but he nodded. Okay, Mom. I just want you to be okay. They left. But that conversation planted a seed of worry in my chest. 3 months later, they got married. A discreet wedding in an elegant garden. 150 guests. An imported wedding dress that cost $4,000. Ryan confessed it to me in embarrassment when I asked. I attended in my best dress, one I had sewn especially for the occasion. Champagne-colored silk fabric, discreet embroidery. Several guests asked me who had made it. I felt proud, but during the reception, I overheard Valerie talking with her friends near the bar. They didn't see me. Is that your mother-in-law, the one in the gold dress? Yes, Valerie replied with a sigh. Poor Ryan, he was raised just by her. The woman could never give him anything. She lives alone? Yes, in a rundown little house in the suburbs. Ryan wants her to come live with us when we buy a house, but I don't know. Imagine having her there all the time. Her friends laughed. One said, well, at least you don't have to worry about complicated inheritances. No, there's nothing to fight over. Valerie smiled. Exactly. That's the upside. No money drama. I walked away before they saw me. My hands were trembling as I held my champagne flute. I took a deep breath. Calm down, Amelia, I told myself. Let them think what they want. But something inside me changed that night. I realized that Valerie hadn't just misjudged my financial situation. She had built her entire plan based on a lie that I myself had created. And now, my silence was becoming my worst enemy. The next 2 years were a slow but steady escalation. Valerie convinced Ryan to buy a house in an exclusive gated community. They took out a massive mortgage. Ryan worked 12-hour days to make the $3,000 monthly payments. I saw how exhausted he was every time he came to visit me, now only once a month. Are you okay, son? Yeah, Mom, just tired, but it's worth it. Valerie is happy in the new house. Valerie got pregnant. Ryan was over the moon. I knitted blankets for my grandson. I embroidered sheets, prepared homemade preserves, but every time I visited their house, I felt the change. Valerie treated me with cold courtesy. She offered me tea in chipped mugs while she drank coffee from fine china. She made me wait in the living room when I arrived because she was busy. And Ryan, my son, saw nothing. He was so submerged in work, in pleasing his wife, in preparing for fatherhood, that he didn't notice how they were pushing me out of his life. Until that Christmas came. The dinner, the toast, the announcement, and my question that froze everything. Son, you really have no idea, do you? Because the time had come, I could no longer remain silent. Not when my own son was burying me alive. Let me go back a little further. I need you to understand exactly who Valerie Sanchez was, because what my son saw in her and what she really was were two completely different things. He met her at an industrial innovation conference at a high-end downtown hotel. Ryan had been forced to go by his boss without much enthusiasm. She was there representing her consulting firm with a name tag that read, Strategic Marketing Manager. Valerie was 5'6", with straight brown hair, always perfectly ironed, flawless makeup that gave her that magazine look, nude-colored gel nails, clothes that screamed money, tailored blazers, silk blouses, high heels. She deliberately clicked against the marble to get attention. She spoke with that neutral accent of someone who went to private bilingual schools. She dropped English words into her sentences. It's a very corporate issue, you know? You have to think about personal branding. Ryan was dazzled. My son, so simple, so noble, had never met anyone like her. To him, Valerie represented that sophisticated world he had never had access to. What he didn't know was that it was all a facade, smoke and mirrors. Valerie grew up in a nice upper-middle-class suburb in a family that once had money. Her father, George Sanchez, had owned an auto parts distributorship. They lived well for years, a 3-story house, 2 cars, vacations in Miami Beach. But when Valerie was 23, the business went bankrupt. Bad investments, fraudulent partners, debts that piled up like an avalanche. They lost the house, the cars, everything. Her father fell into a depression. Her mother, Rebecca, had to start selling costume jewelry at flea markets to survive. But Valerie decided she would never, ever be poor again. She got a job at the consulting firm by lying on her resume. She added certifications she didn't have. She exaggerated her experience. She was good at talking, at selling smoke, at making mediocre projects sound revolutionary in a PowerPoint presentation. She earned $4,000 a month but spent $6,000. How? Credit cards, 5 in total. She juggled them like a desperate acrobat. She paid the minimum on one with a cash advance from another. She bought designer clothes on clearance. She carried knockoff handbags so good that no one noticed the difference. She leased, she didn't buy. The white BMW she drove was a lease. The jewelry she wore was borrowed from her cousin, who worked at a jewelry store. It was all a lie, but it was a lie so well constructed that no one questioned it. Until she met Ryan. That day at the conference, she sized him up in 30 seconds. Industrial engineer, 30 years old. Modest but clean car. Suit not too expensive but well pressed. Simple watch, no ring, she calculated. This man isn't rich, but he has potential. Professional, stable, and best of all, shy, malleable. She approached him with a glass of wine in her hand. First time at these conferences? You look lost. Ryan blushed. Is it that obvious? Valerie laughed. A practiced musical laugh. Relax. I can't stand these events either. Want me to show you the trick to surviving them? Follow me. And that's how it all started. With a conversation, with that ability, Valerie had to make the other person feel special, seen, important. Ryan fell completely. They went out 3 times before she allowed him a kiss. She played her cards well, made herself seem hard to get. She told him an edited version of her life, an old money family that had fallen on hard times but maintained its dignity. My family lost everything, she told him one night with perfectly measured tears. But they taught me that your name, your education, your class, no one can take that from you. Ryan, noble as always, hugged her. I understand. My mom raised me alone. I know what it's like to struggle. Valerie smiled against his chest. Perfect. A man with a savior complex. When Ryan finally introduced her to me, I already knew something wasn't right. Call it instinct, call it experience. 40 years of building businesses had taught me how to read people. The way Valerie shook my hand, that quick, dismissive grip. Her eyes evaluating every corner of my house, cataloging the value of things. The way she smiled, but her gaze remained cold. I knew that look. I had seen it in clients who came to my workshop with fake bills, in suppliers who sold me defective fabric, in potential partners who only wanted to steal my designs. It was the look of someone who is always calculating. What can I get out of this? How does this benefit me? During that first meal, we made small talk, but I asked soft, casual questions. And your family, Valerie? What do they do? My father was in the automotive sector. He's retired now. Half true. Where do you live now? In an apartment in a nice neighborhood. It's small, cozy. She omitted that she rented it with 2 roommates to afford it. And at the consulting firm, what kind of projects do you manage? She hesitated for just a second, but I saw it. Brand strategy, positioning, that sort of thing. Ryan looked at her, smitten. He didn't see the contradictions, didn't notice how she evaded specific details. When they left, I called my accountant. Mr. Morris, I need you to discreetly investigate someone. He looked surprised. In all our years working together, I had never asked for something like this. Mrs. Miller? It's for Ryan. I need to know who my son is dating. 3 weeks later, I had a 12-page report on Valerie Sanchez. Credit card debt, $76,000. Poor credit history. 2 personal loans and collections, real salary, $4,000 a month, not the $6,000 she had told Ryan. Family, unemployed father, mother an informal vendor, younger brother with addiction problems. They lived in a low-income apartment in a rough part of town. Everything Valerie had told Ryan was a polished, stretched, retouched version of reality. I sat on my sofa with that report in my hands. My instinct told me, get her away from your son. Show him this. Protect him. But something stopped me. Ryan was genuinely in love. I saw it in his eyes when he talked about her. And if I came with evidence, with papers, unmasking her, what would happen? He would hate me. He would see me as the meddling mother-in-law, the controlling mother who won't let go of her son. Besides, part of me understood Valerie. I had been in her shoes, young, scared, trying to survive in a world that judges you by your bank account. I had also lied, exaggerated, pretended to be more than I was to get clients. Maybe, I thought, maybe Ryan's love will change her. Maybe she'll find stability with him and stop chasing ghosts of wealth. I put the report in my safe and decided to wait. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Because Valerie wasn't looking for love. She was looking for financial salvation. And she had decided that Ryan, and eventually I, were her ticket out. The following months were a masterclass in manipulation. Valerie started planting seeds, casual conversations that seemed innocent but had poison at the roots. Honey, doesn't your mom have any other relatives to help her? It must be hard for her to be so alone. Have you thought about your mom's future? I mean, when she can no longer take care of herself. It's so nice that you still visit her every Sunday. Though, don't you think we should start building our own traditions as a couple? Little by little, Ryan started to see me differently. I was no longer his strong, independent mother. I was becoming the old woman who needed protection, the future burden that had to be managed. When they announced their engagement, Valerie visited me alone. For the first time, she knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. She wore designer jeans and a pristine white blouse. Perfect smile. Mother-in-law, can we talk? I made her coffee. We sat in my dining room. I want us to be friends, she began. You're very important to Ryan, and so you're important to me. I nodded, waiting. I know you've struggled a lot, that you raised Ryan alone. That speaks of an incredible woman. Dramatic pause. That's why I want you to know that when we get married, you'll never be alone. We're going to take care of you, as family. Her words sounded sweet, but her eyes were studying me, looking for cracks, for weaknesses. I appreciate that, Valerie, but I'm fine. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Something flashed across her face. Annoyance, quickly covered with another smile. Of course, of course. I just want you to know you can count on us for anything. She left half an hour later, but she left something in the air, a silent warning. You're in my way, her eyes said, and I'm going to move you. That night, I took the report out of my safe. I read it again and made a decision. I wasn't going to interfere yet, but I wasn't going to let my guard down either. Valerie wanted to play games. Well, she didn't know who she was messing with. Because I had built an empire from scratch. I had survived widowhood, debt, discrimination. I had learned to fight in a world that gives you nothing. And if Valerie thought a little old seamstress was easy prey, she was about to discover her mistake. The most expensive mistake of her life. The wedding was just the beginning. What came next was a systematic, calculated, almost surgical campaign to erase me from my son's life. Valerie didn't attack head-on. She was too smart for that. Instead, she worked like damp, slow, invisible, but destroying the foundations from within. The first 6 months of marriage were relatively calm. Ryan visited me every 2 weeks. Valerie always had an excuse not to come. I have a meeting. I have a headache. I'm tired from work. I would prepare his favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes, just like when he was a boy. We would sit in my dining room and he would tell me about his life. But I noticed small changes. At first, Ryan started showing up in new clothes that I knew he couldn't afford. Designer shirts, Italian shoes. Valerie says I need to look more professional to get ahead at the company, he would explain. He upgraded his phone to the latest model. Valerie bought it as a wedding gift. They bought expensive furniture for the house. Valerie found an incredible deal. Every sentence started with, Valerie says, Valerie thinks, Valerie wants. My son was becoming an echo of his wife. One Sunday, 8 months after the wedding, Ryan arrived with a strange, worried expression. He sat on the sofa and looked at me with those eyes that always melted my heart. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. My stomach tightened. Tell me, sweetie. Valerie and I have been talking about your situation, and we're worried. My situation? I raised an eyebrow. Yes. Living alone at your age, Mom. You're 66 now. What if you fall? If you get sick, if someone tries to rob you? This house is old. The neighborhood isn't as safe as it used to be. Every word was a repetition of something I was sure Valerie had planted in his head. Ryan, I am perfectly fine. I know all my neighbors. Mrs. Peterson from next door brings me donuts every morning. Mr. Clark helps me with repairs. I'm not alone. I know, Mom, but it's not enough. He took a deep breath. Valerie and I want you to come live with us. There it was. The first real move. Sweetie, I appreciate the offer, really, but this is my home. My memories of your father, of when you were a boy, are here. My sewing workshop. My life. Ryan rubbed his face in frustration. Mom, I know it's hard, but think about the future, when you really can't take care of yourself. Wouldn't it be better to make the change now, while you can still adapt? The logic in his words was poisoned with good intentions. Valerie had trained him well. Son, when that day comes, if it comes, we'll consider it. But today is not that day. Is that clear? I saw the disappointment on his face. He left half an hour later with the container of pot roast I had prepared for him, but with the weight of something unresolved between us. That night I received a call. Valerie, the first time she had called me directly. Mother-in-law, I'm so sorry if today's conversation made you uncomfortable. Ryan is just worried about you. Her voice was poisoned honey. I understand, Valerie, but there's nothing to worry about. Of course. It's just that, well, Ryan told me you sometimes forget things, names, dates, and at our age, that can be a sign of. Excuse me, I interrupted, feeling anger rise up my spine. What did Ryan tell you exactly? Oh, I don't want to worry you. It's probably just nerves, but he mentioned that last week you forgot you had already planned to meet. It was a lie, a complete lie. Ryan had canceled our appointment, not me, but Valerie was rewriting history, planting doubts about my mental health. Valerie, I said in a firm voice. My mind is perfectly clear. I manage my finances, my house, my sewing business. I haven't forgotten anything. There was a silence. Then her voice changed, colder. Well, if you say so. We just wanted to help. But I understand you're proud. Ryan warned me about that. She hung up before I could reply. I sat in the darkness of my living room, holding the phone. Now I understood her strategy. She wasn't attacking me directly. She was attacking my credibility with Ryan, painting me as the stubborn, forgetful old woman who doesn't recognize her own limitations. It was brilliant and dangerous. The following months, the campaign intensified. Valerie convinced Ryan that I needed help organizing my important documents. One Saturday, they arrived together. Valerie was carrying a bright pink plastic folder. Mother-in-law, we brought this for you to keep your important papers in. Birth certificates, deeds, medical documents. Where do you keep them? They're put away in a safe place. Thank you. But where exactly? It's important for Ryan to know in case of an emergency. Ryan nodded, concerned. It's true, Mom. If something happens to you, I need to know where your documents are. I refused, politely but firmly. When it's necessary, I will let you know. For now, everything is under control. I saw the frustration in Valerie's eyes. She hadn't gained access to my papers. Then she tried another tactic. She suggested that Ryan help me manage my money. Your mom shouldn't have to worry about paying bills at her age. You could handle that for her. It would be one less thing for her to worry about. Ryan proposed it to me during a visit. Mom, let me help you. I can pay your utility bills from my account. You just tell me how much you spend a month, and I'll take care of it. That's not necessary, son. I manage everything perfectly. But Mom? Ryan, my voice was sharper than usual. I appreciate your intention, but I don't need you to manage me. Is that clear? He blinked, surprised. I rarely spoke to him like that. But Valerie didn't give up. Every rejected strategy was replaced by a new one. When Valerie got pregnant, everything accelerated. Ryan arrived beaming to give me the news. Mom, I'm going to be a dad. You're going to be a grandma. I hugged him with genuine tears. My grandson, a piece of David living on in this new generation. But Valerie used the pregnancy as a weapon. Mother-in-law, with the baby on the way, we're going to need space. And frankly, your house is bigger than our apartment. Have you thought about selling and buying something smaller? We could use that money for the baby's education. She said it casually during a family visit, as if she were suggesting what to have for dinner. This house is not for sale, I replied. Oh, don't be offended. It's just a suggestion. But well, I understand you're attached. Although realistically, when you're no longer here, the house will go to Ryan anyway. Wouldn't it be better to make use of it now that the baby needs it? She spoke of my death as if she were talking about the weather, with that chilling nonchalance. Ryan said nothing, just looked at his plate, uncomfortable. Then came the real blow. A month before that fateful Christmas, Ryan arrived with papers. His face was serious, rehearsed. Mom, Valerie and I consulted with a lawyer about asset protection. Asset protection? I repeated slowly. Yes, the lawyer says that at your age you should have everything in order just in case. And that the safest thing is to transfer the house into my name now to avoid legal problems later. There it was, the ultimate goal, my house. And why would we need to do that, Ryan? To protect you, Mom, if the government, or if there are tax problems, or if someone tries to take advantage. They were baseless excuses, phrases Valerie had put in his head. And my bank documents, do they also need protection? Ryan cleared his throat. Well, the lawyer suggested it would be prudent for you to give me power of attorney, just as a precaution, so I can help you if something happens. Power of attorney, full access to my accounts, my assets, my life. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and for the first time in 66 years, I didn't recognize the man in front of me. Ryan, I said softly, do you really think I can't manage my own affairs? It's not that, Mom. Then what is it? Silence, long, uncomfortable. Finally, he sighed. Valerie says, I don't care what Valerie says. My voice cut through the air like a razor. I'm asking what you think. I saw him hesitate. For a second, I saw my real son in there, struggling to get out. But then he clenched his jaw and said, I think Valerie is right. You're stubborn, Mom, and that could get you into trouble. Every word was a stab, but I breathed and took the papers. I read them carefully. They were to transfer my house, the smallest one valued at $300,000, into his name. All right, I said finally. Ryan seemed surprised. Really? Yes. If this gives you peace of mind, son, I'll do it. I signed right there, with Mr. Morris as a witness, whom I had called beforehand, of course. Ryan hugged me. Thank you, Mom. This is for the best. You'll see. What he didn't know was that this house was my least valuable property, that I had 8 other properties generating millions, that I had just given him the crumbs while the real feast remained hidden. But I needed them to believe they had won, that they had gotten everything I had, because when they discovered the truth, the fall would be that much more painful. And that Christmas, the time came for the toast, the moment when Valerie, drunk on power and champagne, announced that she would now control everything, that my card had been canceled, that I was officially under her management, and everyone applauded, my family, my blood, celebrating my humiliation. But then I smiled and asked, Son, you really have no idea, do you? and Valerie's world began to crumble. But before we get to that revelation at Christmas dinner, I need you to understand the hell I lived through those last 3 months. Because Valerie didn't just want my money. She wanted my dignity, my spirit. She wanted to see me on my knees, and she almost succeeded. After I signed over the house, something changed. Valerie no longer pretended. She had obtained what she believed was my only asset. So the masks came off. The first humiliation came 2 weeks later. It was Sunday, my monthly visit day to Ryan's house. I rang the bell at 2 p.m., as we had agreed. Valerie opened the door. She was wearing an ivory silk robe, her hair in a messy bun, her face bare of makeup. Her 4-month belly was already showing. "Oh, mother-in-law, didn't Ryan tell you? We can't have you over today. We have important guests." Through the ajar door, I saw the empty living room. No guests. "Ryan confirmed with me yesterday that I should come today," I said, holding the container of casserole I had been preparing since 5 a.m. Valerie sighed as if I were a foolish child. "Well, he told you wrong. Besides, mother-in-law, we need to talk about these surprise visits. Now that the baby is coming, we can't just have people showing up without planning. Ryan will call you to schedule a convenient time." "Schedule?" I repeated the word as if it were poison in my mouth. "I'm his mother, not a dental appointment." "I know, but things change. You understand." She started to close the door. "Leave the casserole. I'll give it to Ryan." She held out her hand to take the container as if she were a delivery person, as if she weren't the woman who had raised her husband alone for 30 years. "No," I said, stepping back. "This casserole is for my son. I'll give it to him when I see him." Valerie narrowed her eyes. "Whatever. Have a nice day." The door closed in my face. I stood there on the porch of that pretty house, in that elegant gated community, holding a cooling casserole, feeling smaller than I had felt in years. I took a cab back to my house. I didn't eat. The casserole stayed in the fridge. 3 days later, I threw it out. It had gone bad. Like my relationship with my son. Ryan called me the following Wednesday. "Mom, sorry about Sunday. Something came up at the last minute." He didn't mention important guests. He didn't mention that Valerie had turned me away. Just an empty apology. "It's okay, son." I lied. Because what else could I say? The next humiliation was worse. Valerie called me one Tuesday afternoon. "Mother-in-law, I need to ask you a favor." "Tell me." "I have a gynecologist appointment tomorrow at 11. Ryan has a meeting and can't go with me. Could you take me? And on the way, you can help me with some shopping for the baby." Something in my chest lifted. Maybe this was an olive branch. Maybe we could start over. "Of course, dear. I'd be happy to." I arrived at her house at 10:30 on time. I brought my purse with extra cash in case they needed something for my grandson. Valerie came out impeccably dressed. A lavender maternity dress, low heels, a designer bag. She looked me up and down. I was wearing my normal clothes. Jeans, an embroidered blouse, comfortable shoes. "Oh, mother-in-law, are you going like that?" "Sorry?" "No, nothing. It's just that we're going to the high-end mall downtown afterward. But, well, it doesn't matter." She didn't say more, but the message was clear. I looked bad. I wasn't on her level. At the doctor's office, the gynecologist greeted us. "Are you the mother?" she asked, smiling. "No, she's the mother-in-law," Valerie corrected quickly. My mom had something come up. Throughout the entire consultation, Valerie treated me as if I were invisible. She didn't include me in the conversations. When the doctor asked something, she answered, looking only at Valerie. "Do you have family support for when the baby is born?" "Yes." "My mom is going to come help me for the first few months," Valerie replied. I was sitting there, 3 feet away, and she had just erased me. Afterward, we went to the mall. Valerie walked into an expensive baby store. Strollers, cribs, bottles, clothes. She pointed at things. "I like this. This too. This one." The salesperson totaled it up. $2,500. Valerie turned to me. "Mother-in-law, can you help us with this? It's for your grandson." There it was, the real reason she had invited me. I took out my wallet. Inside, I had $150 in cash. It was what I normally carried. I have 150, Valerie. I didn't know we were going to buy so much. I saw her expression change, disappointment, then contempt. Only 150? She laughed, a cruel laugh. Well, I guess that's what you can manage. Keep it, I'll pay for the rest. She took out a gold credit card, Shirley Ryan's, and paid. The salesperson looked at us, uncomfortable. Next time, let me know in advance, I said calmly. And I can bring more. Valerie looked at me the way you look at an insect. Don't worry, mother-in-law. I get it now. Ryan was right. You don't have much to contribute. Each word was a nail in my heart. On the way back, we didn't speak. She dropped me off at my house without even getting out of the car. That night, I cried. For the first time in years, I cried until I had no tears left. But the worst was yet to come. One Saturday, Ryan called me. Mom, we're having a family gathering next weekend. My cousins, their wives, the kids. Valerie wants everyone to see her belly. Can you come? Of course, son. Should I bring anything? No, just come. I arrived with a chocolate cake I had baked, Ryan's favorite since he was a child. The house was full. Cousins, nephews, sisters-in-law, all well-dressed, drinking wine, laughing. Valerie was the center of attention, with her tight dress showing off her belly, receiving congratulations. I walked in with my cake. No one greeted me. I looked for Ryan. He was in the backyard with his cousins grilling meat. Son, I brought cake. Oh, thanks, Mom. Just leave it in the kitchen. I went to the kitchen. My nephew's wives, Sarah and Michelle, were there preparing salads. Good afternoon, I greeted them. Oh, mother-in-law, so glad you could make it, Sarah said, but her tone was condescending. Valerie told us you already gave them the house. What a lovely gesture. Michelle nodded. Yes, how nice. At your age, you don't need those worries. I left the cake on the table. Where should I put this? Valerie walked in at that moment, saw my cake, and wrinkled her nose. Oh, mother-in-law, I told Ryan not to bring anything. We already have dessert. We bought a cake from a French patisserie. She pointed to an elegant box on the counter. But thank you. We can save it for later. She took my cake, 3 hours of work, made with love, and put it in the back of the refrigerator, hidden. Come on, mother-in-law. Let's go to the living room. But be careful with the white sofa. It's new. You'd better sit in the wooden chair. She pointed me to a hard, uncomfortable chair in a corner, as if I were a child being punished. I sat there watching my family laugh, toast, celebrate. No one included me in the conversations. When I tried to join in, they ignored me or changed the subject. At lunchtime, they served the plates: grilled steak, gourmet salads, elaborate side dishes. They gave me a plate, but I noticed it had less meat than the others, more salad, as if they were rationing my portion. Valerie stood up with her glass. Family, I want to thank you for being here. This baby is going to be born surrounded by love. She looked at everyone. Her eyes passed over me as if I were part of the furniture. I especially want to thank my mom, who is going to come take care of me after the birth. I don't know what I'd do without her. Everyone applauded. I didn't exist. I ate in silence. My cake never came out of the refrigerator. At 6 p.m., I left. No one noticed I was gone. 2 weeks later, the final blow came before Christmas. I went to the bank to withdraw money from my personal account, the one with my $200 monthly sewing pension, my decoy account. I put my card in the ATM. Card blocked. Please consult your bank. I went inside the branch. The teller checked my account. Mrs. Miller, your card was canceled at the request of the authorized account holder, a Mr. Ryan Miller. I felt the floor move. What? It says here he requested the cancellation a week ago as a protective measure for senior citizens. Ryan had canceled my card without telling me, without consulting me. I called my son, furious. Mom, wait, let me explain. Valerie read an article about scams targeting the elderly, and we thought it was better. We thought, or Valerie thought. Mom, don't be angry, it's for your protection. Now, if you need money, you just tell me and I'll give it to you. You'll give me my own money? It's not like that, it's... Give me back my card, Ryan. I can't, Mom, it's already been decided. This is for the best. I hung up, trembling with rage and helplessness. That night, I took the documents out of my safe. I read them all, my properties, my investments, my secret empire. And I made a decision. Enough. The lie was over. Being invisible was over. Being stepped on was over. If they wanted to play at controlling me, if they wanted to treat me like a useless old woman, if they wanted to humiliate me, I was going to show them who Amelia really was. And Christmas would be the perfect stage. I called Mr. Morris. I need you to prepare something for me. For Christmas dinner. Bring all the documents. All of them. Are you sure, Mrs. Miller? Completely. Because Valerie had made a fatal mistake. She thought humiliating me would break me. But all it did was awaken the warrior who had been sleeping for years. And when a woman who built an empire from scratch decides to fight, there is no mercy. On Christmas morning, I woke up at 5. Not out of habit, but because I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at the darkness outside my window. The neighbors' Christmas lights twinkled faintly. I could hear distant carols from a nearby house. I touched the wine-colored shawl I had laid out on the chair. I had knitted it myself 15 years ago when Ryan turned 17. Every stitch carried a prayer, a wish for my son to be happy. Today, that same son would see me as never before. I showered, dressed carefully. Black dress pants, a beige hand-embroidered blouse, the shawl over my shoulders. Nothing flashy, nothing to draw attention. I wanted to look exactly like what Valerie thought I was, a simple, defeated old woman. At 8 a.m., my doorbell rang. It was Mr. Morris. He came in with a brown leather briefcase. He set it on my dining table with a solid thud. Inside was my real life. All the documents, all the proof. Are you absolutely sure about this, Mrs. Miller? He asked, taking off his glasses to clean them, a nervous gesture he made when he was worried. More sure than ever, Mr. Morris. It's going to change everything, your relationship with your son. My relationship with my son has already changed, I interrupted. Ryan decided who I was without asking me. Valerie decided my worth without knowing me. Today, they're going to find out they were wrong. Morris nodded slowly. What time do you want me to arrive? At 9 p.m., Ryan said the toast would be at 9:30. You arrive just after the toast. I'll call you. He left. I was alone in my house with the brown briefcase on the table. I opened it. I went over each document as if seeing it for the first time. Deeds to 8 commercial properties, collectively valued at over $2 million. Lease agreements, monthly income of $10,000. 3 condos downtown, valued at $1.5 million. Monthly rent of $9,000. Investment certificates, funds, treasury bonds. Total $260,000. Total net worth, over $5 million. And Ryan knew nothing, absolutely nothing. I closed the briefcase. I took a deep breath. David, I whispered into the air, speaking to the ghost of my husband who died 40 years ago. I wish you were here. I wish you could tell me if I'm doing the right thing. Silence was my only answer. At 6 p.m., I took a taxi to Ryan's house. I brought a container of my famous spiced cider, apples, oranges, cranberries, cinnamon, and a bag with wrapped gifts for the baby, due in March. The taxi stopped in front of the house. 2 stories, modern facade, manicured lawn. The house Ryan thought he could afford on his own. He didn't know he was drowning in credit card debt that Valerie used as if money were infinite. I rang the bell. Ryan opened the door, smiling. He was wearing a ridiculous Christmas sweater with an embroidered reindeer. He hugged me. Mom, so glad you made it. Come in. Come in. He smelled of his usual aftershave. For a second, he was my little boy again, the one who ran to hug me when I came home from school, the one who said, I love you, Mom, every night before bed. But then Valerie appeared, tight peach-colored dress, V-neck, hair in perfect waves, 5 months pregnant. She looked radiant, powerful. Mother-in-law, so glad you could make it. The emphasis on could. It was subtle but venomous. The house was full. My nephews and their families had already arrived. Sarah and Michelle, the sisters-in-law, were laughing in the kitchen. The kids were running through the living room. Everything smelled of roasted turkey and warm cider. I sat on the chair they indicated, the same one from the last gathering. Hard, uncomfortable, in the corner. Valerie brought me a glass of cider. Here you go, mother-in-law. Non-alcoholic, of course. At your age, alcohol isn't good. I was 68, not 90, but I said nothing, just smiled. Thank you, dear. The dinner proceeded as normal. Well, normal for what my life had become. Conversations I was excluded from, glances that ignored me, laughter that didn't include me. I ate my turkey, again a smaller portion than the others, and I observed, memorizing every face, every gesture of contempt. At 9 sharp, Valerie stood up, tapping her glass with a small spoon. The tinkling sound, the silence of the conversations. Family, it's time for an important toast. Everyone raised their glasses. I did too, slowly. Valerie radiated confidence. She had practiced this moment, planned it. Today, we don't just celebrate Christmas. We celebrate a new beginning for this family. Ryan looked at her proudly. His cousins leaned in, expectant. As you know, our baby arrives in March. This has made us reflect on responsibilities, on the future. She paused dramatically. Her hand caressed her belly. That's why Ryan and I have made an important decision. My heart beat slow and heavy, like a war drum. From today on, I will be managing all the finances of this family. Absolute silence. It's time for someone young, prepared, with a modern vision to take control. Ryan has worked very hard. He deserves someone to optimize his resources. Several people nodded. Very well thought out, Sarah murmured. Valerie continued, and now her gaze locked onto me like a predator cornering its prey. Mother-in-law, I know this might be hard to understand, but it's for the best. At your age, you shouldn't have to worry about money, about paying bills, about deciding on expenses. She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's why this morning, Ryan and I canceled your credit card. I heard muffled gasps, but not of indignation, of approval. It was the right thing to do, Michelle added. My mother-in-law should do that too. These older ladies sometimes spend on unnecessary things. Laughter. Damn laughter. Valerie raised her glass higher. So let's toast to a prosperous future, to a baby who will be born into an organized family, to smart decisions. Cheers, they all shouted. They clinked glasses, drank, celebrated. They celebrated my humiliation. Ryan came over to me. He touched my shoulder. Mom, I know it's a change, but this is good. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. If you need anything, whatever it is, just ask me. I'll give it to you. He looked at me with pity. My own son looked at me the way you look at a nuisance that needs to be managed. Valerie came over too, radiant. See, mother-in-law? Now you can live peacefully, without stress, like a grandma should. They were all looking at me, waiting, wanting to see how the old lady would react. If I would cry, if I would beg, if I would break. I set my glass down on the table. The sound of the crystal against the wood echoed louder than I expected. I stood up. Slowly. I felt every one of my 68 years in my knees, but I stood tall. Back straight, chin up. I looked my son directly in those honey-colored eyes that had once looked at me with pure love, and I smiled. Not a sad smile, not a defeated smile. A calm, enigmatic, dangerous smile. Son, I said softly, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife through butter. You really have no idea, do you? Ryan blinked. His smile froze. Something in my tone unsettled him. Know what, Mom? The atmosphere shifted, like when the sky darkens before a storm. Everyone felt the change. The conversations died. The children stopped running. Valerie stepped forward, her voice sharp, nervous. Know what, mother-in-law? I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence grow, let the tension become unbearable. I looked at both of them, then at my entire family one by one, engraving their faces in my memory. Mr. Morris, I said finally, taking out my phone. Can you come now? I dialed. 2 rings. Mrs. Miller? Bring the brown briefcase, please. The family is ready. I hung up. Valerie looked at me with confusion that was quickly turning to panic. What? What are you doing? Waiting, I replied calmly. I sat back down. I folded my hands in my lap. You're about to meet someone important. Ryan approached. Mom, what are you talking about? Who is Mr. Morris? My lawyer. Well, one of them. One of... Ryan turned pale. You have lawyers? Several, sweetie. When you manage a certain volume of assets, lawyers are necessary. The words fell like bombs. Sarah murmured, Assets? Valerie laughed, a nervous, forced laugh. Mother-in-law, I don't get your jokes. What assets? You barely have. Barely have what, Valerie? I interrupted. My voice was no longer soft. It was steel. Finish the sentence. She opened her mouth, closed it. She had no answer. 20 minutes later, the longest 20 minutes of their lives, the doorbell rang. Ryan opened the door like an automaton. Mr. Morris walked in, 60 years old, thick glasses, impeccable gray suit, brown briefcase in hand. Good evening, family, he greeted formally. I am Edward Morris, accountant and legal advisor to Mrs. Miller for the past 20 years. 20 years. I let that number hang in the air. He approached me. Mrs. Miller. Mr. Morris, please, show them. He opened the briefcase on the dining table. He began to pull out documents, one after another. Deeds, contracts, certificates, bank statements, the table filled with papers. Ryan approached, picked one up, read it, turned pale. This says you own a pharmacy on the north side. That's right, I confirmed. I bought it 18 years ago for $80,000. Now it's worth over $300,000. I rent it out for $3,000 a month. He picked up another document. His hands were shaking. 3 medical offices downtown. I bought them in the 2008 crisis. Excellent investment. Another document. A cafe, a stationery shop, a beauty salon. All rented. Passive income, son. Money that comes in without me lifting a finger. Valerie stumbled forward, snatching documents, reading them with wide, disbelieving eyes. This can't be real. These are 3 condos in a luxury high-rise. Correct, I continued. Each one valued at over $500,000, rented to foreign executives. $3,000 a month each. Morris continued pulling out papers like a magician pulling scarves from a hat, but these scarves were dynamite. Investment certificates, $260,000 in funds, treasury bonds, government securities. The room was deathly silent. The only sound was the rustling of paper. Sarah whispered, "Oh my God." Michelle had collapsed into a chair, speechless. Ryan looked at me as if I were a stranger. Mom, what is all this? I stood up. Slowly, I took one of the documents, the most important one. This, sweetie, is who I really am. The widowed seamstress you thought was your mother. That was only part of the story. I walked over to him, put the document in his hands. Total net worth, $6 million, generating a monthly income of $15,000 in rent and interest. Valerie made a sound, half-grown, half-strangled cry. But, she stammered. The house. You gave us your house. You said it was all you had. I smiled, coldly, calculatingly. That house, the one you so kindly accepted to protect me, is my least valuable property. It's worth $300,000, about 8% of my total net worth. The math hit Valerie like a bucket of ice water. I gave you the crumbs, I continued, while you thought you were conquering my kingdom. Ryan dropped the papers, put his hands to his head. Mom, I don't understand. Why? Why did you never tell me? And there it was, the question I had been waiting for. I went to my son, touched his face like when he was a child. Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have. I wanted you to become a man on your own merits, not because of my money. Tears rolled down my cheeks, the first genuine tears of the night. But Valerie taught you that money is worth more than love, that power is worth more than family. And today, my son, today you chose to humiliate the woman who gave you life, believing you had a right to crumbs that didn't even exist. The silence was deafening. Valerie was pale, whiter than her wedding dress had been, because in that moment, she understood her mistake. She had gambled everything on a lie, and she had just lost. Valerie was the first to react, but not as I expected. Not with apologies. Not with shame, but with fury. "This is cheating!" she screamed, her voice breaking into a high-pitched shriek. "You lied to us. You deceived us. You made us believe you were poor." Her face was red, the veins in her neck standing out, her hand clutching her pregnant belly like a shield. "I never lied to you," I responded with glacial calm. "You assumed. I never asked for financial help. I never said I was poor. You created that story in your head. But you didn't tell us the truth either." Valerie turned to Ryan, desperate. See what she's like? Your mother is a manipulative liar." Ryan was motionless, in shock. He stared at the documents scattered on the table as if they were written in a foreign language. Mr. Morris cleared his throat. "Allow me to clarify, Mrs. Miller. Amelia never committed fraud or illegal concealment. All her income is declared with the IRS. She pays her taxes religiously. Her properties are registered correctly. Legally, there is nothing to claim." Valerie ignored him. She turned to the other guests as if looking for allies. "Are you hearing this? This woman hid millions while watching her son work himself to death." Sarah and Michelle exchanged uncomfortable glances. They no longer looked so sure of themselves. "Ryan was killing himself?" I corrected. "Ryan earned an honest salary doing honest work. I paid for every dollar of his education, $5,000 a semester for 5 years. I bought him his first car when he graduated. I helped him when he needed it. But I wanted him to learn to stand on his own 2 feet, not to depend on inheritances, to build his own life." "How convenient," Valerie spat. "What a nice speech. But the truth is, you enjoyed watching us struggle, watching us beg, feeling superior." Something inside me snapped. The patience I had maintained for 3 years exploded. "Struggle?" My voice rose in volume. "Struggle. Do you know what it is to struggle, Valerie?" I took a step toward her. She flinched. "I was widowed at 28, 7 months pregnant, with $50,000 in debt that threatened to take the roof over my head. I sewed until my fingers bled. I ate beans so my son could have milk. That is struggle." I took a breath, my chest heaving. "You struggled because you couldn't buy the designer handbag you wanted, because your leased BMW wasn't yours, because your credit cards were maxed out with the $75,000 you spent on whims." Valerie turned pale. "How?" I pulled another document from the pile, threw it at her. It landed at her feet. "Private investigation. I hired a detective a year ago when I started to suspect who you really were." She bent down to pick it up with trembling hands. She read it. Her face went from white to green. "Your family went bankrupt when you were 23. Your father is unemployed. Your mother sells jewelry at flea markets. Your brother has addiction problems. They live in a low-income apartment in a rough part of town." Every word was a slap. "Everything you told Ryan about your old money family was a lie. The BMW is a lease. The jewelry is borrowed. The designer clothes are bought on clearance or are knockoffs." Ryan finally spoke. His voice sounded broken. "Is that true, Valerie?" She didn't answer, just cried. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage, of humiliation. Mr. Morris continued, relentless. "And there's more, Mr. Miller. Your wife has 5 credit cards in your name, all maxed out. Total debt, $76,000, with interest accumulating at 28% annually." Ryan staggered. He had to lean against the wall. 5 cards? "Valerie, you told me you only had one for emergencies." I was going to tell you," she stammered. "When they were about to foreclose on the house?" I took out another document. This one was the most painful for me to share, but it was necessary. "Ryan, there's something else you need to know." I handed him a paper. He took it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Valerie started dating you 3 weeks after her previous relationship ended. A 45-year-old married businessman. She was his mistress for 2 years. He paid for her apartment, clothes, trips. When his wife found out and forced him to end it, Valerie looked for a replacement. No, Ryan whispered. I'm sorry, son, but you needed to know. Valerie didn't fall in love with you. She fell in love with what she thought you were, a stable engineer with a mother who would eventually leave an inheritance. A retirement plan. Valerie exploded. That's not true. I love Ryan. This is all because you're a resentful witch who can't stand to see her son have his own family. You love him? I asked softly. Then tell me, Valerie, when you canceled my card without asking me, when you served me food on chipped plates while you ate from fine china, when you made me wait at the door like a beggar, when you hid my cake in the refrigerator so no one would see it? Was that love? Loving Ryan meant destroying his mother? Silence. Ryan was looking at me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know what she was doing to you. I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I know, son. That's why I'm doing this. Not to hurt you, but to open your eyes before it's too late. Valerie switched tactics. She knelt in front of Ryan dramatically, grabbing his hands. Honey, please, don't believe her. She's trying to tear us apart, to ruin our family. Think about our baby, our son. Ryan looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Doubt. Valerie, is it true about the businessman? She hesitated for just a second, but it was enough. That was a long time ago, before I met you. It doesn't mean anything. And the credit cards? I can explain. And your parents, your family? Ryan, I just wanted you to accept me. I was afraid you'd reject me if you knew. If I knew what, Valerie? If I knew you lied to me about absolutely everything? His voice rose, years of frustration, manipulation, and half-truths finally exploding. Valerie stood up. Her mask had completely fallen away. She was no longer the sweet, concerned wife. She was a desperate, cornered woman. And what if I lied? She screamed. You would have never looked twice at me if you knew I came from a rough neighborhood, that my mom sells necklaces on the street. You wanted a princess, right? Well, I gave you what you wanted. I wanted honesty, Ryan replied, his voice breaking. I wanted the truth. Valerie laughed, a bitter, venomous laugh. Truth? Like the truth your mother hid from you for 40 years? At least I lied about my past. She lied about millions of dollars. She turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. You ruined everything. You. We could have been happy. We could have had a good life, but you couldn't stand to see us happy, could you? You weren't happy, I said calmly. You were building on lies, and lies always collapse. Always. Shut up. Just shut up. Valerie grabbed her purse. I'm not staying here to listen to this. Ryan, we're leaving now. Ryan didn't move. Ryan, I said we're leaving. No. That one word, 2 letters, but it sounded like thunder. What did you say? I said no, Valerie, I'm not leaving. I need to think. I need to process all of this. Process? Process? Valerie was hysterical. Your mother just humiliated me in front of your entire family. She exposed me, she destroyed me, and you need to think? You lied to me, Valerie, about everything. Your family, your past, the money. Everything. Because I loved you. Because I wanted to be enough for you. If you loved me, Ryan said, and his voice was pure pain, you would have respected my mother. You wouldn't have humiliated her. You wouldn't have taken away her dignity. Valerie opened her mouth, closed it. She had no defense for that. I think you should go, Ryan continued. For tonight, go to your parents' house. Your real parents, the ones who live in that rough neighborhood. And tomorrow, we'll talk. If I leave now, Valerie threatened, her voice dangerous, I'm not coming back. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Then don't come back. The world stood still. Valerie stared at him in disbelief, waiting for him to take it back, to run after her, to beg her. But Ryan turned around and walked toward me. Valerie stood there, frozen, for 5 eternal seconds. Then, with a scream of fury, she grabbed her purse and stormed out. The door slammed shut with a bang that made the walls tremble. The silence she left behind was absolute. The guests were petrified. No one knew what to say, what to do. Finally, Sarah cleared her throat. We think it's time for us to go. Thank you for dinner." One by one, the family slipped away with mumbled apologies, with ashamed glances until only 3 of us remained: Ryan, Mr. Morris, and me. Ryan collapsed onto the sofa, covered his face with his hands, and cried. He cried like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a little boy. I sat beside him, put my hand on his back. I said nothing. I was just there. Mr. Morris discreetly packed up the documents. "Mrs. Miller, do you need anything else from me tonight?" "No, Mr. Morris, thank you for everything. At your service. Have a good night." He left, and there we were, mother and son, in that beautiful house that had become a battlefield. Ryan finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know, sweetie. I didn't know. I didn't know what Valerie was doing to you. I didn't know. I didn't know anything." "I know. Why did you never tell me? About the money? About everything?" I took a deep breath. "Because I wanted you to fall in love with life, not with money. I wanted you to build your own path. But I was wrong, son. I was wrong to hide so much from you. And that created the space for Valerie to manipulate you." He turned to me, his eyes red and swollen. "Now what do I do, Mom? I have a baby on the way, a wife who lied to me, a life that's falling apart." I hugged him like I did when he was a boy and had nightmares. "Now, sweetie, you rebuild, with truth, with dignity, and I will be here, just as I've always been." He cried in my arms until he fell asleep. That night, I covered my 32-year-old son with a blanket. I turned off the lights. I cleaned up what was left of Christmas dinner, and as I washed dishes in that silent kitchen, I wondered if I had done the right thing. I had destroyed his marriage, exposed Valerie, revealed secrets that perhaps should have stayed buried. But when I saw my reflection in the kitchen window, I saw a woman who had finally reclaimed her dignity. And that, after all, was worth more than any secret. The days after Christmas were strange, like walking in a world where gravity worked differently. Ryan stayed at my house in his old room, which I had kept exactly as he left it when he moved out. Soccer team posters, shelves with his school trophies, the twin bed with the blue-striped comforter. We didn't talk much in those first few days. He was processing, I was waiting. 3 days after Christmas, Valerie called. It was 11 in the morning. Ryan watched the phone vibrate on the breakfast table. He let it ring. "Aren't you going to answer?" I asked. I don't know what to say to her. The phone stopped ringing. 30 seconds later, it started again. This time Ryan answered, putting it on speaker. I guess he wanted me to hear. "Ryan, we need to talk." Valerie's voice was calm, too calm, calculated. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Come home, please. We need to sort this out like adults." "I don't know what's true and what's a lie with you anymore, Valerie." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice broke. "I know I messed up. I know I lied to you. But I did it because I love you, Ryan. Because I was afraid of losing you. You lied about your family, your past, the money, about everything. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. But honey, we have a baby on the way. Our child. Are you really going to destroy our family over the mistakes I made?" A masterstroke, using the baby as a shield. I saw Ryan waver. "I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm trying to understand who you really are. I'm the woman who loves you, the mother of your child. That's what matters, isn't it?" Another pause. "Your mom has poisoned your mind, Ryan. She showed you papers, told you half-truths, manipulated you into hating me." "My mom showed me the truth. The truth, or her version of the truth? Valerie's voice hardened. Think about it. She hid millions for 40 years. She watched you struggle, work, drown in debt, and never lifted a finger to help you. And I'm the villain? Ryan looked at me, confused, hurt. Valerie, that's enough. No, it's not enough. Because now your mom has you there, in her house, under her control. Don't you see what she's doing? She's pushing me away. Your wife, your baby. She's repeating the same old pattern, controlling you. No one controls me. Oh, really? Then come home now. Prove to me you can make your own decisions without your mommy telling you what to do. It was pure crystalline manipulation, but it was brilliant. Ryan clenched his jaw. I'll be there, but not to come back, to talk, like you said, like adults. I'll be waiting. She hung up. Ryan stood up. Mom, I need to do this. I need to talk to her, clear things up. I know, son. Go, but go with your eyes open. He left half an hour later. I stayed home, knitting a blanket for the baby who would be born in 3 months. Busy hands, an unquiet mind. Ryan came back 4 hours later. His face was pale, distraught. What happened? He collapsed onto the sofa. Valerie. Valerie has a plan. What kind of plan? She wants us to go to couples therapy to save our marriage. She showed me YouTube videos about families who overcome crises. She talked about the baby, about how our son deserves to have his parents together. He took a deep breath. And then she told me something that chilled my blood. I waited. She told me that if I don't come back to her, if we don't fix this, she's going to sue me for maximum child support. She's going to ask for the house. She's going to make this as dirty and painful as possible. I closed my eyes. Of course. When emotional manipulation fails, the threats come out. And what did you tell her? That I need time, that I can't just erase all the lies and pretend nothing happened. He rubbed his face. Mom, what do I do? I sat beside him. I took his hands. Son, I can't decide this for you. It's your life, your marriage, your baby. But I will tell you what I can offer you. Support, no matter what you decide. Even if I go back to her, even if you go back with her. Because you're my son, and that will never change. He cried again. I don't know if I love her, Mom. I don't know if I ever loved her or if I just loved the idea of who I thought she was. That's the question you have to answer. The next 2 months were a whirlwind. Valerie intensified her campaign. Daily calls, texts, ultrasound photos. Look at your son, Ryan. Are you really going to abandon us? She hired a lawyer, threatened a lawsuit for abandonment, for psychological abuse. She invented stories of mistreatment. But then Mr. Morris did his job. Mr. Miller, he told him one afternoon in my living room, I've looked into the legal situation. Your wife can sue for child support, yes. But since you didn't abandon her, she effectively threw you out when her lies were discovered, and there is no proven abuse. The judge will be reasonable, and the house. It's in both your names, but you paid the down payment with a loan from your company. I have the documents. In a divorce, it would be divided equitably. Considering the credit card debts she hid, you'd likely end up selling it and splitting what little is left. Ryan nodded slowly. And the baby? Shared custody, most likely. You have a right to be a father, Mr. Miller. She can't take that away from you. But then something happened that none of us expected. At the end of February, 2 weeks before the due date, I got a call, an unknown number. Amelia Miller? Yes. Who's speaking? I'm Rebecca Ortega, Valerie's mother. My heart sped up. Mrs. Ortega, I need to speak with you in person. Can we meet? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my house. I arrived 15 minutes early. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink. Rebecca Ortega arrived on time. 57 years old, graying hair pulled back in a ponytail, simple but clean clothes, rough hands from working, tired but kind eyes. She sat across from me, ordered a tea. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Tell me, Mrs. Ortega, what is it? She took a deep breath. I need to apologize. For my daughter. For everything she did to you. I hadn't expected that. I know Valerie treated you badly. Ryan told me. Well, Valerie told me her version, but I know my daughter. I know when she's lying. Her eyes filled with tears. I raised her alone after my husband fell into his depression. I worked selling whatever I could to give her an education. But at some point, she decided it would never be enough, that she deserved more, that the world owed her something. It's not your fault, Mrs. Ortega. Yes, it is. Because I allowed it. When she started lying about our life, about our family, I stayed silent because I wanted her to be happy, because I wanted her to have the opportunities I never had. She wiped her tears. But I taught her that lying was okay, that pretending was more important than being honest. And now she's having a baby, and I'm afraid she'll teach him the same thing. I took her rough, working hand so much like my own. What can I do? Mrs. Ortega? I don't know if I can ask this of you, but could you give Valerie a chance? Not for her, for my grandson. That baby isn't to blame for his mother's mistakes. Mrs. Ortega, I would never deny Ryan the chance to be a father, or my grandson the chance to have his dad. But that's not up to me. It's up to Ryan and Valerie. I know, but you have influence over your son. If you tell him not to go back. I would never tell him that. Ryan is an adult. It's his decision. Rebecca nodded. Valerie hates me for coming here. She told me if I spoke to you, she wouldn't let me see my grandson. But I couldn't stay silent. I needed you to know that not all of my family is like her, that some of us do have values. We sat in silence. Two mothers, two women who had struggled their whole lives, who had made mistakes, who loved their children despite everything. Mrs. Ortega, I said finally, when that baby is born, you are going to meet him, I promise you. No matter what happens between Ryan and Valerie, that child will have his maternal grandmother in his life. She cried, Thank you. Thank you. We parted with a hug, two warriors, recognizing each other. That night, I told Ryan about the meeting. Valerie's mom came to see you? He said, surprised. Yes, she's a good woman, son. Hardworking, honest. Valerie didn't learn her lies from her. Ryan was thoughtful. You know, I've been thinking about the baby, about being a dad, and I'm going to be there for my son, always. But that doesn't mean I have to be with Valerie. Have you decided? Yes, I'm going to ask for a divorce after the baby is born. I don't want to stress her during the pregnancy, but I can't stay in a relationship built on lies either. I nodded. It's a difficult decision, son, but it's yours, and I respect it. Do you support me? With all my heart. 2 weeks later, on March 15th at 3 a.m, Valerie's water broke. Ryan got the call. He was dressed in 2 minutes. Mom, it's the baby. Go, son. I'll meet you at the hospital. I arrived at the hospital 2 hours later. Ryan was in the waiting room, nervous, pacing back and forth. How is she? She's in labor. The doctors say everything is going well. At 9:43 a.m, my grandson Matthew was born. 7 pounds, 11 ounces, dark hair, closed eyes. Perfect. When they let me into the room, I saw Valerie in the bed, exhausted, disheveled, holding the baby. Our eyes met, and in that moment, all the hate, all the war, all the venom evaporated. Because there, in her arms, was my grandson, blood of my blood, David's legacy, our family's future. Do you want to hold him? Valerie asked softly. I took Matthew in my arms. He smelled of newness, of hope, of a second chance. Hello, my love, I whispered. I'm your grandma, and I promise I will love you unconditionally, without lies, without games. Valerie cried. I don't know if it was from exhaustion, hormones, or something deeper. Mrs. Miller, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw a scared girl who had made terrible decisions trying to escape her past. I know, Valerie, I know. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The 3 months after Matthew's birth were the strangest of my life, like living in 2 simultaneous realities. In one reality, I was the loving grandmother. I visited Matthew 3 times a week. I brought him clothes I knitted myself. I held him while Valerie showered or rested. I sang him the same lullabies I had sung to Ryan. In the other reality, I was the mother-in-law who had destroyed a marriage. Valerie treated me with cold courtesy. Ryan slept in the guest room of his own house. The divorce talks were postponed until Valerie recovered from childbirth, but we all knew it was a matter of time. In June, 3 months after Matthew was born, Ryan finally did it. He came to my house one Saturday afternoon. He sat on the sofa where he had spent so many afternoons of his childhood. "Mom, I officially spoke with Valerie today. I asked for a divorce." My heart clenched. How did she take it? Better than I expected, I think. I think she was expecting it too. Living together without being together these past months has been unbearable for both of us. And Matthew? Shared custody. She stays in the house during the week. I have him on weekends. We'll adjust as he gets older. He took a deep breath. And Mom, there's something else. Tell me. Valerie wants to sell the house. She says she can't afford the mortgage alone. That with the credit card debts, she's drowning. There it was. The inevitable consequence of years of living beyond her means. And what do you want to do? Honestly, selling would be for the best. Split what's left, start over. He looked at me with those eyes that still melted my heart. But Mom, I don't know if I can. The house value has dropped. With what we owe on the mortgage, plus the credit card debts that are in my name too, we're going to end up in the red. How much? He pulled out some papers. He had studied them. He had numbers jotted down in his small, neat handwriting. The house is worth maybe $500,000. We owe $400,000 on the mortgage. The cards total $98,000. Valerie kept spending after Christmas. He did the mental math. If we sell, after paying everything off, we'll have maybe $2,000 left to split, $1,000 each. And with that, you have to start from scratch. Yeah, rent an apartment for me and for when Matthew visits. Buy furniture, clothes, everything. He laughed bitterly. At 32, starting over like I was 20, I watched him, my son, my warrior, defeated but not broken. And I made a decision. Ryan, there's something I need to tell you. What is it, Mom? I got up, went to my room, and took a manila envelope from my safe that I had prepared 2 weeks earlier. I came back to the living room, handed it to him. Open it. He did. Inside were documents. He read them, his eyes widening. Mom, this is the deed to an apartment. That's right. In a good neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, full kitchen, worth about $200,000. I bought it 6 years ago as an investment. And why are you showing it to me? Because it's yours. Silence. What? I'm giving it to you, son. So you have a place to live. So Matthew has a home when he's with you. So you can start over. Mom, no, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not too much. It's what's fair. It's what I should have done years ago. Supported you without making you dependent. Given you tools without taking away your hunger to grow. Ryan looked at the document with tears in his eyes. But there are conditions, I continued. Conditions? Yes. First condition, the apartment is yours, but if you ever sell it, 50% of the profit goes into an education fund for Matthew, locked until he turns 18. He nodded. Deal. Second condition, you pay me symbolic rent, $50 a month, not because I need the money, but because I want you to value what you have, to never forget that things have a cost. Understood? Understood. Third condition, Valerie never, ever has access to that apartment. It's your space, Matthew's and yours, a place to rebuild your life without the lies of the past. That's my favorite condition, he said with a sad smile. I hugged him. I love you, son, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth sooner. I'm sorry my silence created the space for Valerie to manipulate you. No, Mom, it's not your fault. I was the fool who believed the lies because I wanted to believe them. We stayed like that, hugging, healing, but it wasn't over yet. There's something else, I said, pulling away. More? I took out another envelope, this one thinner. This is for Valerie. Ryan frowned. For Valerie? Open it. He did. Inside was a check for $50,000. Mom, what is this? It's a gift for Valerie to pay off her credit card debts. What? Mom, after everything she did to you? Listen to me, son. Listen carefully. I took his hands. Valerie is the mother of my grandson. I don't have to love her. I don't have to be her friend. But I also can't allow my grandson to grow up in poverty because his mother is drowning in debt. But I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for Matthew, and I'm doing it for you. Because as long as Valerie is financially desperate, she's going to be a desperate mother, and that will affect your son. Ryan shook his head, incredulous. You're too good, Mom. I'm not good. I'm practical. This is an investment in my grandson's mental health. I paused. But it also has conditions. What are they? Valerie has to use it only to pay off debt. Mr. Morris will verify that every dollar goes to the banks. If she buys clothes, shoes, anything other than paying off debt, the deal is off and I get the money back. And the second condition, Valerie agrees to go to psychological therapy for a minimum of 1 year, paid for by me, to work on her issues, her lies, her relationship with money. And if she refuses, then she's left with her debts. Simple. Ryan looked at me with admiration. When did you think of all this? I've been thinking about it for 3 months, ever since Matthew was born. Ever since I understood that this was no longer about Valerie and me, it was about that baby. The next day, Ryan presented my proposal to Valerie. She called me 2 hours later, crying. Mrs. Miller. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just accept the conditions and work on being a better person for Matthew. Why are you doing this? After everything I did to you? Because I am a mother before I am a victim. And that baby deserves the best, including a mother who is well. Valerie went to therapy religiously every week, resisting at first, then opening up. In August, 6 months after Matthew was born, they signed the divorce papers. It was amicable, sad, but necessary. Ryan moved into his apartment. He decorated it simply, comfortably. He prepared the second bedroom for Matthew with all his love, and every weekend, my grandson arrived in that space. Sometimes I would visit them, cook for Ryan, play with Matthew. We were a family again, wounded, but healing. One Sunday in October, I received an unexpected visitor. Valerie knocked on my door with Matthew in her arms. She wore simple clothes, no excessive makeup. She looked real. Mrs. Miller, can we talk? I invited her in. I made coffee. We sat in my living room. I've been going to therapy, she began. As you asked? I know, Mr. Morris keeps me informed. My therapist asked me to do something, to come talk to you, to apologize. For real. Not because I want something in return, but because I need it to heal. I listened. I was horrible to you. I treated you like dirt. I humiliated you because it made me feel powerful, because my whole life I felt less than everyone. And finally, there was someone who could be beneath me. Tears streamed down her face. But you were never beneath me. You built an empire, raised a wonderful son, survived things I can't even imagine. And I was just a spoiled child playing queen. Valerie. No, let me finish, please. She took a deep breath. I've learned in therapy that all my lies came from fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being rejected if people knew where I came from. But the lies only created more fear, more pain. And what have you learned now? That the truth hurts less than lies. That being poor doesn't make me less valuable. That my mom, who sells necklaces at the flea market, is more worthy than any businessman I ever met. She looked at Matthew, asleep in her arms. And that I want my son to grow up knowing the truth, the real story of his family, not some polished version. I moved closer, touched her hand. Valerie, I forgive you. she sobbed. Really? Really. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of the poison. It means your mistake no longer has power over me. Thank you. Thank you. She left an hour later, lighter, freer. And I felt free too. The following months were about rebuilding. Ryan blossomed in his new apartment. He got a promotion at work. He started saving again. Valerie continued with her therapy. She sold the leased BMW, bought a modest car, stopped pretending to be someone she wasn't. And Matthew. Matthew grew up surrounded by love, by 2 real homes. A year after the Christmas explosion, I called a family meeting. Ryan, Valerie, Rebecca, Valerie's mom, Mr. Morris, and me. I've gathered you all because I need to communicate some decisions, I began. Everyone looked at me expectantly. I have updated my will. Silence. Ryan, you will inherit one of my condos downtown, valued at $500,000, and an investment fund of $200,000. Ryan blinked. Mom? Wait. I'm not finished. I looked at Matthew playing with blocks on the floor. For Matthew, I have created a trust. $1 million, locked until he turns 25, for his education, his future, his dreams. Valerie gasped. Mrs. Miller, that's too much. It's not for you, it's for him, so he never has to lie about who he is, so he has real opportunities, not fantasies. I continued. The rest of my estate, approximately $5 million, will go to the Amelia Mendez Grant for Widowed Entrepreneurs. Ryan smiled. Mom, that's perfect. For women like me, like Rebecca, like so many who are left alone and have to build from scratch, we will give them microloans, training, support. I looked at Rebecca. In fact, Mrs. Ortega, I would like you to be on the board of directors. Rebecca cried. Me? You. Because you know what it's like to struggle, and because your honesty is what this foundation needs. That afternoon, we all signed documents, sealed the future, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. 6 months later, the Amelia Mendez Grant opened its doors. A small office in a revitalized part of the city, 3 employees, a pilot program with 20 women. The opening was simple: coffee, donuts, brave women telling their stories. Ryan was there with Matthew in his arms. Valerie came too. Rebecca cut the inaugural ribbon, and I, Amelia, the widow, the seamstress, the woman who built an empire in silence, could finally shout my truth. That night, back in my house, I sat on my floral sofa, the same one where I had spent 40 years sowing dreams. I took out an old photo, David and I, young, hugging in front of our humble little house. We did it, my love, I whispered. Our son is a good man. Our grandson will have a future. And your widow never stopped fighting. I put the photo away, turned off the light, and slept in peace. 3 years later, Matthew is 4 years old. He's a bright, curious, loving boy. He spends weekends with Ryan, weekdays with Valerie, and every Tuesday and Thursday, he comes to my house. His day with Grandma. We bake cookies. I teach him how to use my old Singer machine. I tell him stories about his grandpa David. Ryan remarried. A woman named Elena, an elementary school teacher. Simple, honest, kind. The wedding was small, beautiful, real. Valerie has rebuilt her life too. She has a boyfriend, a mechanic from her old neighborhood who met her while she was helping her mom at the flea market. He loves her for who she is, not who she pretends to be. The foundation has helped 200 women in 3 years. Some have opened businesses. Others have paid off debts. All have regained their dignity. And I am 71 years old. I still sew. No longer for money, but for love. Every stitch is a prayer. Every garment a legacy. Yesterday, Matthew asked me, Grandma, why do you work so hard if you're already rich? I knelt in front of him, touched his perfect little face. My love, I don't work for money. I work because every stitch reminds me of who I am, where I come from, and where I'm going. And where are you going, Grandma? I smiled. To a future where you, my beautiful boy, know that real value isn't in what you own. It's in what you build, in how you treat others, in the dignity you never let anyone take from you. He hugged me. I love you, Grandma. And I love you, my darling. And I love you. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment telling me where you're following from, what lesson you're taking away. Have you ever had to defend your dignity in front of your own family? Share your experience, give it a like if you believe dignity is priceless, and subscribe to keep hearing stories of women who rise up, who fight, who never give up. Because in the end, true wealth isn't what you keep in the bank. It's what you never let anyone take from you. Your name, your truth, your dignity. May this story remind you that it's never too late to reclaim your voice, to set boundaries, to say enough. Until the next story, take good care and never ever forget your worth.